folks, the magic hour has come. My bell's busted. There we go. The Rotary Club of Livermore is in session assembled. Alan, take over the screen. I didn't give him his 2 minutes warning. Nah, we've seen enough of that. Let's see. Hank Shea, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Hank, you might be muted.
Got to unmute Hank and start over.
Okay, Hank, you're unmuted.
Unmuted. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ooh, lots of echoes that time. All right. I found the President's Graphic of the Week in an unlikely place this week, the cover of Bloomberg Business Week, which is where you don't normally look for humor. And I found this great Instacart shopper, and he's saying, no bacon, Lysol, or toilet paper. Is the substitution okay? And he's holding up a sandwich. If you've danced with Instacart, that's not a surprise. That happens quite frequently. Okay, that was a door breaker, wasn't it? Stu, dig me out of the hole I put us in.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
I can't, can you hear me? All
Yes,
right.
Stu, everybody is
Yes.
muted during this section, so it's not, it's a.
Oh, I
it's a
can't
null
hear
question.
you for some reason.
Hard to sing along when you're muted.
Everybody's muted at this point.
There we go. Okay, here we go. This is Wonderful World, since we're talking school this week. History, don't know much biology, don't know much about science book, don't know much about the French I took, but I do know that I love you, and I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. Don't know much about geography, don't know much trigonometry, don't know much about algebra, don't know what a slide rule is for, but I know that 1 and 1 is 2, and I know it's going to be with you. What a wonderful world this would be. Now I don't claim to be an A student, but I'm trying to be. Maybe by being a student, baby, I could win your love for me. Don't know much about history, don't know much biology, don't know much about algebra, don't know what a slide rule is for, but I know it's true. If this one could be with you, what a wonderful world this would be.
Thank you, Stu.
You're welcome.
All right. To Will Bateson for the thought for the day.
Unmute myself. Well, as we all know, last weekend was Mother's Day. And if you're like me, you're missing baseball a whole lot right now. It's one of my pastimes I really like to do in the spring. So I thought I'd incorporate just a little short story about Mother's Day and baseball in a son's dream. This was about a friend of mine about 20 years, well, he's 20 years younger than me. But when he grew up in Florida, he had dreams of being a professional baseball player. And he worked really hard. He wasn't a very big guy, but he got a full scholarship to Florida State. And by his senior year, early in his senior year, he was leading the entire nation in hitting. So scouts were taking notice of him. And unfortunately, in one game, he went to cover first base. The throw was wide, and his arm got ripped out of his socket by the runner. And as he's on the ground, writhing in pain, he looks up and he sees all the scouts closing their notebooks and walking away. His agent told him he was damaged goods. And 2 months later, when there was the draft, he didn't get drafted. So he did what a lot of people would do. He went to ask his father for advice. He said, "Dad, what do I do?" And his dad said, "Well, son, you've had a good run, but it's time to get a job." That was not what David wanted to hear. So what did he do next? He said, "I know, I'll go ask Mom." So he asked his mom, "Mom, what do I do?" And his mom said, "David, if you believe in your dream enough and you believe in yourself enough, you'll find a way." That's the condensed version. He ended up playing professional baseball the next 6 years and now owns a company whose motto is "Find a Way." So happy Mother's Day, all you mothers out there, and thank you, fellow Rotarians.
Thank you,
Oh,
Will.
That was nice.
That was very, very nice. Okay, can we have the Rogues Gallery, the front line today? Glenn Kubiak, whom we all know and love, Spur reporter Jim Schmidt is amongst us, Alan Frank, who worked his usual wonders, Niall Runge, and Kathy Coyle. Kathy, are we going to see a new hat, or is that going to be going to run the year out in that thing?
I don't pick that photo. Ask Alan.
Okay.
He does that to me.
I'll talk.
All right.
Okay. Oh, I like the dog, Will. Is that new? Or is that a picture?
It's a picture. The dog is cute, but she's not new and she's a problem.
I'm not surprised. My grandson has one of those coming in a week. The only thing worse than having one red yellow lab is to have 2 yellow labs, which they'll have now.
We have 2.
All right, there you know then. Okay, do we have any visiting Rotarians today? Fess up if you're there. I guess not. Let me move on to guests. I have 3, potentially 4. Caleb Chung, you have seen flash by or heard flash by. He is.
Excuse me, Jay. I'm a visiting Rotarian.
Oh, you didn't jump fast enough, Lee. I'm sorry.
I couldn't find my unmute.
All right. Tell us who you are.
Oh, Lee Demlinger. I am a member of the Rotary Club of Dublin and the assistant governor in Area 4, and I mentor VA clubs in Area 4 until June 30th. Thanks for doing this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee.
And
Thank you for
President Jay, this is Kelly. We also have Philomena Rambo. She's visiting from the Morning Club Rotary. She's joining us. She's the president-elect for their club, and she's also going to help me with my presentation and advancing the slides. And she's an amazing Rotarian, and I think she comes to our club often enough that everyone probably knows her, but let's welcome her. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'll restart then on, if that's the end of the Rotarians, you know, if you don't jump up, I can't find you in the pack. All right, guests. Tim, it looks like you have a guest.
Yes, my beautiful wife Claudia is here today with us.
All right, good to see you again, Claudia.
Hi.
All right, I'm going to run my cast of characters from Quest then. I guess Gina Bonanno did not join us. Gina is, as you know, on the Planning Commission.
Nope, I'm here. I'm here, Jay. Sorry.
All right, you're here. So Gina is with us. Caleb.
Sorry about that.
Hi there.
Lon Dragoo, you have seen.
Here I am.
I assume Rick Stulen. Are you there, Rick?
I'm here, Jay.
Very good. They were very interested in Kellett, and as you know, Quest is trying to figure out what it does in support of the schools. So I'm very glad to have them here. Do we have other guests? All right. Hey, and I see our count is up to 73. Okay, Ted Michaels, you were going to talk to us about the foundation elections.
Wait, Jay, I have a guest
Oh,
right here. This
oh,
is,
there you are. Oh, yeah.
come in closer, Jim. It's my brother Jim. He's here to visit with everybody and hear Kelly.
I want to hear what Kelly has to say.
Okay, thanks for coming, Jim. I had one other thing to say. I had a long talk with Barry Schrader early this week, and Barry says hello to all of you. He's doing as well as you can with pancreatic cancer and hospice. He's off solid food, surviving on liquid food, but his son, who recently retired from Republican staff to Congress, has moved out there with him to help him get to the end. So he's very grateful to have his son with him. As you may know, his wife had a stroke about 3 years back, and sadly, she is over in the hospital part of the compound where they live, and it's all locked down, so he can't go to see her. That is not a unique experience, but Barry was very, very glad to hear from the club, ask questions about many of you, and David sent around a note saying that he does better on email or text messages than he does on the phone. He said the phone is kind of exhausting, but he was just chipper as could be. So I would encourage you to communicate with him. Okay, over to Ted Michaels. Ted.
Hey, good morning, Rotarians. I wanted to give you an update on the election for the board, for the foundation board. There were almost 80 people, well, 80 exactly, out of the club that voted. There were 4 people to choose from. And I'm pleased to announce that Marianne Rocha and Kimberly Grudel were the ones that got the most votes. So they'll be on the representatives from our club to the foundation for the next 3 years. So congratulations to them, and thank you for the others that put their name in on the ballot, which was Norman Bergman and Hang Shea. Thank you.
All right, a good result. Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you two on the board, Kimberly and Marianne. Pat Coyle, you're taught to talk to us about KINSA.
Yes, I can do that briefly, Jay. Sorry about the late notice. I realized I didn't know we are going to have to put this on the agenda each week, but the update from Jared at KINSA is 250 are being delivered to us, and he's provided a link which we can post and share socially, which will allow others to apply to get a KINSA for free. So I think the next step for us is Joel and I need to finalize the little sign-up sheet that we're going to use. We have a form that we'll do electronically so club members can sign up for both clubs and from the foundation, our local foundation if we like. He's initially shipping us 250 at a list of addresses. I think maybe there'll be a few more, but it may only have 150. So we'll be looking at other venues for being able to distribute the balance. A prime example is Head Start. Rotary Rosemary Almond has spoken with Kathy. They're both have been involved in the management of that agency. And while many of those families will receive thermometers through the public schools feeding programs, ones who have toddlers or infants may not. So we'll see how far they go there. So that's the report on KINSAs.
Okay. And I see a note that says Barry Schrader just joined us. Welcome, Barry. All right. We're over. Oh, you were going to talk about the masks. Did you have anything to say about the masks, Pat?
Well, you can see the background in there. I'm just collaborating with Armand Boise from the club to square up a little donation form that we can use to ask. We had several people say they'd like to do it. I'm just getting the price right. It's going to cost us basically the minimum shipping order is 500 masks. That costs about 110 bucks. So when you throw that plus the cost of the masks in, they cost about $2.18. So we're paying about a 20 cent premium over being off having to buy them on the street in around Lake Atitlan. A donation to feed and provide hygiene products for a family for 2 weeks is $35. So I think, you know, the basic buy a dozen masks is $23. If you want to buy a food bag and hygiene bag, it's another $35, or we can scale it, whatever. So that's the basic concept. There'll be more to follow with a form and some instructions. So that's the update on masks.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to Bob Cowan to talk about READY.
Okay, well, the READY program is pretty much dead in the water for this year. We're trying to get students on board to do something with Zoom, but so far we haven't connected because there's a lot of things we have to go through to do that. But we did get board approval for $4,000 to buy Chromebooks to both help the READY kids and when they're not using other kids at the Junction School. So, and I've been studying how to do that, and I just got an email about 3 minutes ago, and now I know exactly what to do. So we'll get the money to the district's get them bought, and we'll get them out to the schools, and hopefully the kids will be able to use them maybe at the beginning of the new school year, whenever that is.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks for jumping on that. I think that was very important. It's we've done heavy lifting in the community this year, and I'm proud about that. I'll have more to say about that later in the year.
By the way, the background there is some of the kids in our last trip to the Exploratorium. That was in February, I think, and which is one of the strongest points of the program, to get these kids out and see museums around the Bay, and kids that have probably never been to a museum and maybe haven't been to San Francisco or Oakland.
Bob, what's the individual cost per Chromebook? So how many are we buying with this 4K?
With tax, I was sent it's $284.35, and that's 14 point something Chromebooks. So it'll be around 14 unless they get a better buy.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Kelly and Philomena, it's over to you two to run your program as you wish. We're looking forward to this.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you also, just as a follow-up, for the Chromebooks for Junction and the Kinza thermometers. That's amazing. So we're going to go ahead and start. The topic today is about how we've been shifting in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So Philomena is going to go ahead and share a PowerPoint screen, I think, and then we can get started. Is there any buzzing, or is the sound okay? Are we okay with thumbs up?
All good.
Fine.
Thank you. Okay, so our focus of this year was Focus Vision 2020, and that's still our focus, but we've had to shift the processes, and we had to be very nimble and shift our processes to maintain our focus on our students and their learning throughout this process. And so our mission remains the same, which is that each student will graduate with the skills needed to contribute and thrive in a changing world. And I think this year more than ever, we see how much the world has changed, but we're still committed to making sure that they're thriving and healthy and sound and safe while they learn. So that's extremely important. We've gone through a lot of phases like everybody. The school district has gone through different phases. So when we first were hearing about COVID-19, we were responding with awareness to educate ourselves about it, educate our community, educate our families and our staff. And we relied on public health officials and research and everything that we could get our hands on. And we focused initially on prevention, which was the hygiene and the sanitation and the deep cleaning and preparing for anything that could happen, which is something we're continuing to do. Then we focused on communication with our families, with the community, with our students, as things changed in response to government guidance and public health guidance. And we worked initially with containment, where we started, some of you may not realize, but we started to limit visitors on our campus. We had limited and canceled field trips, any group gatherings. So we're really trying to be very restrictive and focus on keeping our students and staff at school while limiting the outside contacts in order to contain or reduce spread. But then once things started getting of more concern in the community and beyond, in the whole world basically, then we had to shift to monitoring and mitigation. So we very carefully monitored the health of our students and our staff, and we had no reported cases of student or staff members during that period of time. So that was fortunate, but some of them did have family members, and we were following the mitigation measures, such as, if you're in a vulnerable group, or if you are in an at-risk situation, then to stay home, or if you had been exposed. And then we went to school dismissal, and that probably was the most dramatic change in my career and over 32 years in public education, and certainly in a 10, 11 years of being a superintendent, where we dismissed school. Initially, it was March 16th through April 3rd, followed by spring break. Then as the issues grew larger, it was extended through board action, and in concert with all of the other local districts and the county, it went through May 1st, which would have essentially had us coming back May 4th, which would have been just recently. But then with everyone else in the state, our board also took action to then extend it through the end of school, which is June 4th. So we're in school dismissal. Our campuses are not closed, but students are dismissed. That's the only way we could keep them safe and adhere to the guidelines of shelter in place while making sure there was no opportunity for congregating, which, as you know, schools were not really designed for that. They are designed for social interaction, and that's what we're trying to prevent. So we're in that dismissal mode still through the end of the year. So we still are considered an essential business. You hear a lot about that, about certain businesses that can stay open, and schools are certainly an essential life function. Teaching and learning is something that is not only required, it's ethically responsible to continue to deliver that. We also have a major responsibility of providing nutritional food, and it goes even beyond our normal procedures. So our regular school year, we provide food for free and reduced rate for students in poverty in designated categories, but we also provide paid food service for students who can pay for lunch and that option. During this dismissal period, we have a waiver from the federal government that we applied for, and so we are feeding any youth, regardless of their status, any youth in Livermore, age 18 and under, can come and get food. And the food that we're providing is nutritional. It meets all the guidelines. It's at 4 of our campuses. So it's Christensen, East Avenue, Maryland, and Junction. And we give 2 meals a day plus a snack at all 4 campuses. And then Maryland and Junction, which we do have a higher need there in those communities, we give also a supper. And that has been every single day since. We also have our essential Measure J bond construction projects, and I'll show you photos of those later, but that is, public works are essential. They must continue, and that's our community supported those bonds, so those are still happening. We've also have to be prepared to provide healthcare workers with childcare as a backup. So we have 4 sites in working with LARPD that are prepared to provide that. We have not been activated yet because that wasn't a need, but if some of the dire predictions had come true and we were so overloaded, then that certainly would have been activated, and it's still an option. And then a lot of people may know this, but any worker who's in public service, whether they're city, LARPD, or the school district, we are all designated disaster service workers. So if any pandemic or any crisis or emergency happens, we are actually called on to do things that are not even in our job description, but that we could be doing anything to help with the Red Cross or with the National Guard or anything that's in service. So we haven't activated that, but we're ready. So we are facing the global pandemic, and we had to completely pivot to distance learning. Most of what we do is in classroom, interactive, hands-on learning, and very collaborative and cooperative learning, lots of group things as well as individual learning. We've always had an independent study program, but that is for a select group of students who want that alternative or who need that alternative. And the majority of our students, and we have over close to 14,000, are normally in an in-class setting. So this is a huge shift for everyone. It's basically redoing everything that we have done in person, translating that into distance. So we brought school home, and many of you may have experienced that. And we know our families had to adjust as well, but it's been quite enlightening, and it's been a journey, and we're getting better and better at it every day. But it gives new meaning to the words parents as partners in education. They are definitely in a more key role as they guide and help their students learn, rather than wait for them to come home and tell them how it went. So we talked about Chromebooks earlier. You were mentioning the distribution of those toward the Ready kids at Junction, and that's wonderful. But we, more than ever, this distance learning shift has spotlighted and highlighted the fact that we have a digital divide, not just in Livermore, but in pretty much in everywhere. And we have students who didn't have regular access to a Chromebook and or the internet. So we've loaned out 3,023 Chromebooks to students. And it's very important to know that even in the same household, you know, if parents are working from home now, if there's only one computer device, that we need to have more than one for families. And if they have siblings, they need to all be on. So 23% of our students needed a Chromebook, and they received them in a drop-off sanitary way. They were able to take those home, and they're actively being used. In addition, we provided, with a partnership with Comcast, hotspots, and there have been some glitches with that, but we are really pushing now. And one of my passions, kind of more politically, that I'm taking on is working with others on an Internet for All initiative, which would allow for, so I believe, especially the distance learning situation has definitely spotlighted the need, is that, you know, we all have plumbing and we have, you know, water, we need electricity. Well, we need internet access. It shouldn't be for the haves and the have-nots, because that's just going to exacerbate the educational divide. So that's a large push right now, and this is definitely put that in the forefront. So our online resources, I encourage you to go to our website, and Philomena Rambo, who's our community engagement director, she's, you know, here with us today. She helps with all of our communications. And so our website is really, it's an award-winning website, rightly so, with so many resources. And so it has things on school dismissal, it has information, but it also has a lot of options for parents who are at home, student support, enrichment. We have wonderful partnerships with the Lawrence Lab and with the Shakespeare, the Livermore Shakes, with some of our local partners who are actually putting things on there. Our library has been amazing with all of their digital resources. And so it's really like a hub that, you know, a one-stop shop, anything that you would need to find to get through this distance learning experience, you can find there. And it is important, as I said, that we ensure equity and that we're flexible. So certainly, the people who like things to be stable and certain and exactly the same every day had to really adjust, because often we would prepare for something and then the next day the landscape would change for us. So we had to navigate this new territory. And I have to say, we have 1,500 staff members, and they have risen to the challenge, even with their own concerns, many of them teaching with or working with their own families also at home now and their students. We've all really rallied around and tried to make it work for our families. The photo you see is one of our child welfare attendant specialists making a home visit, bringing food and items for a family. So we provided internet. We are also being very flexible with grading. There was a lot of controversy in some communities about that, but really our philosophy and our board's philosophy is that no child should be punished for something that's beyond their control academically. And so it's really a hold harmless situation where we went to credit, no credit. It's different than pass, not pass, because credits are required for graduation. And one unique thing that made this an easier decision for Livermore than maybe some communities is we're on a trimester system. So we already had 2 full grading periods, first and second trimester, which in many cases is equal to a year of work. And so we already had 2 full grading periods before this last trimester. So it was really just this last trimester that would be credit, no credit. And that's so that students who we can't, you know, they really can't control their environment and how they access learning when it's distance. And you can't say that a child didn't complete it because they didn't care or weren't trying, because sometimes their circumstances are very varied and inequitable. And I'll give you some examples. We could have students at home with sick family members. We could have students at home with parents who are out of work and cannot help them in the way that their regular classroom experience could. We also have really high-performing students. One student I can think of, so he's an extremely high-performing student, all AP, ready to, you know, do great things, has never even missed a day barely in school, yet he had a part-time job as a grocery clerk, and now I come to find out he is the only family member in his family of 5 that is actually working with a job. He's working almost 40 hours a week now at Lucky's as a bagger, and he's the only person who has a job because the rest of his family is in shelter in place and their jobs are not open. So that's just to give you one idea of, and we have another young man who is extremely, you know, high performing and had, again, never missed school, And yet both of his parents are in critical workforce. They're doctors and a nurse, a doctor and a nurse. And so he has to take care of his younger siblings all day. So to say that then that student has to compete with a student who may have both parents at home with college degrees, ready to help him with his internet and his Chromebook and all that, it's just an uneven playing field. And just to give you the magnitude, this isn't just a Livermore exception. This is, you know, an international exception. And so the colleges and universities, which those of you who know them, and I know we all do, they are usually very entrenched and they don't make shifts very often. So for them to amend their admission requirements universally and embrace the credit, no credit, shows how important it was that that happened. And even the advanced placement test, the SAT test, all these things, the International Baccalaureate, everybody is adjusting and making some exceptions for this very unique experience that the class of 2020 is going through. And on a side note, I'm just going to give a comparison. When we had the fires in Paradise and in Napa, in those areas, those communities were devastated, and the high school students there, they missed out on a lot. Their proms, their graduations, and their testing and their learning was very much affected. Unfortunately for those students, they also, it was only a regional issue, and so they still had to compete with everyone else, and there were no exceptions made for them from the larger institutions. But in our case, it's Livermore, it's the state, it's the nation, it's the international climate, and so everyone's experiencing it, so really we're all in the same boat. There's no competitive advantage or disadvantage. So that's an important key. And I know even from my own experiences, right now, the class of 2020 is getting accepted at higher rates into their colleges and universities of choice than ever, because there's no international competition right now. Very few students are coming, if any, going to be traveling overseas to come to American universities. Often a lot of spots in the UCs and other prestigious universities are taken up from international students. And that's probably temporary, but it is what's going on now, as well as many students are not coming from out of state. So our students, not just Livermore, but all students in America are actually, they've been waitlisted or they may have been denied and on appeal. They're now getting in just amazing numbers. So that's one little silver lining. So I talked about the essential functions and the health and wellness needs. We cannot ignore those. That's very important for our students as well as their learning. And so we'll go in a little more detail, but this is an example of how we're feeding. It's a grab and go lunch and supper, no contact. And we're also finding that these stations are distribution points for other things that can go to families who come. And so that's how the other items such as we've had See's Candy has come and donated 3,200 pounds of candy. We're also giving extra things out if they would like, but this is our feeding. And I got to share the number with you of how many, since March 16th, minus spring break, 106,392 meals as of yesterday. So pretty phenomenal, but it also shows the need. Our families need this. One of the other things our board did at our recommendation was to provide personal protective equipment to first responders. And so we did this through a board resolution where we transferred 5,095 masks that we had in stock. We had stopped these masks when we had those air quality concern days. And we also always keep gloves in stock, and we got them at a time when they were really inexpensive in bulk. So we had them, we weren't using them. So we arranged to transfer them to the city of Livermore, which then distributed to the local first responders as well as the local hospitals. We also have another 10,000 masks that can go out, but right now they haven't asked for them. But if there's a surge again, then we would definitely be able to hand those out as well. Some of the other things, and you'll see this is the Kinza thermometer that Pat Coyle was talking about earlier. So it was amazing, it's amazing. Just he sends an email, he makes a connection, our nurses pick it up, Mrs. Scudder works on it, and suddenly we're handing out Kinza thermometers to our families, which is not just for the actual thermometer use for their own health, it's also a way, if they use the app, for us to help combat and track and monitor the health of our community. So it's really a wonderful thing. We've given out a couple hundred. They had to fill out a form first, and then we have more to give to staff who would like, and that's been amazing. So thank you, Pat, for arranging for that. And again, we use the distribution point because people are already used to coming to these 4 spots. And then this is an example, we're teaching people how to make masks. Our students are doing the no-sew mask. Not everybody has a sewing machine or skill level, me included. So you can make one with the rubber bands, and we have the instructions, the little video on our website. And emotional growth, mental wellness is very important. This is a really difficult time for a lot of people, a lot of families under economic stress, also uncertainty about their future. Students who thrive on the social connection can become isolated and they don't get to see their friends, some of those happy moments. And so we always have a social emotional component. It's very important in our district, and we use the Choose Love curriculum, but we're doing a special outreach to people who could be struggling with this. So we have a website portion called Mental Health Matters, and there's a lot of different resources. One of the partnerships we have is Care Solace, and Care Solace is kind of a broker where people go on our website, they can contact them, it's confidential, and then they connect them with a resource for whatever they're experiencing. It could be anxiety, it could be sleep issues or sleep deprivation, it could be depression, whatever people are experiencing. And we've seen our numbers increase in those areas of families accessing that, which just shows that this is a very tense time, and we're trying to keep the brightness and the happiness there and stay very connected. So when the teachers, they're delivering curriculum, but also our counselors and our school psychologists and our principals, and we're reaching out with parents. We're also trying to help boost their spirits and morale and keep them feeling connected. There are a few students who actually are more introverted that are finding that this is less stress for them. So it's kind of interesting. For some students, being in like a comprehensive high school and maybe they don't feel as socially accepted or as popular, or maybe the sports and the dances aren't their thing. For them, this is less stress because they're not getting called on in class, in front of people. They don't worry about what they're wearing, if someone's gonna think their clothes aren't nice enough or something. So they're actually, it's kind of interesting that there's a little flip there in our interactions with students about who is weathering this and who is more comfortable in this new environment. And we're helping our parents. So this is interesting. I meet once a month with all of our parent leaders, and we were meeting virtually now. We normally meet in person, and we've had 2 meetings, and about 5 weeks into this, we had our first meeting, and I said to all the parents, and they have ranging from 1 to 5 kids, all of them, and they're doing the guided learning at home, helping them through distance learning. And so I said, well, how many of you now feel really expert and you're thinking maybe you want to be a teacher now? Or how many of you like this so much that you want to homeschool now permanently because you think it's so great? And 100% of them said, no, please take our children back. We have a whole newfound appreciation for the schools and what you offer and what you provide. And they tease about it. They'll say, we used to think sometimes it was the school, maybe it's a teacher. Now we think maybe it's my kid. Can we transfer him to another class? And so it's been quite interesting to see how parents have had to adjust too. And one of the things we're doing is, and Philomena's group department is part of this, is Livermore Learns. And we always have this program going, and the topics change in response to what our parents ask for. So we've had navigating college or how to raise an adult. We've had sibling rivalry, things that parents deal with. So the new ones that are coming up are establishing a routine and dealing with distractions. And we have them in English and Spanish, and they're coming up, and anyone can join. So you don't have to be a parent in our district. Anybody can go online and join the webinars and learn together. And I think it's really valuable because what we're finding is I literally have talked to parents and kids who say during school dismissal and when they're not working, they lose track of days. They don't know what day of the week it is. They don't know what time things are. And we're saying still, even if you don't have to go to school, get up and get dressed and have breakfast and have a routine and study and learn and log on and then have some athletic physical time, trying to keep people in a routine because the adjustment coming back is going to be even harder if they don't. So I mentioned the essential bond projects, and I know some of you are very tied to either Granada or Livermore High. So they're continuing, and this is again a silver lining because normally our construction is continuing, but they have to stop if there's testing because of the noise, and when they can't bring trucks and heavy equipment in and out certain times when there's students present or when the parking lot's full. And so it's always working around the school. Well, since students and staff aren't there regularly, now our projects have accelerated. So a good thing is when they finally get back, some of these projects will have been so far along that they'll get to see some new facilities that eventually they'll be able to be in and enjoy. So this is just a vision of what Livermore High Gym will be and the sports complex, the whole athletics complex. Then also the Granada one in progress, the pool and all their athletic facilities. Then there's a little sneak peek at what East Avenue will look like. The new buildings there, because that's a long time coming to be renovated. And then also of Joe Mitchell, K-8, which is our expanded IB school. So this is just a little sneak preview, and this is from Measure J, Measure J, and it's our bond that the community has supported us with $245 million of investing in our students and our facilities. So we keep working with our partners. The library I mentioned, also Rotary gave chickens, and that's a picture of that. We've had chickens come out. We've also had Casa Roscoe stepped forward during spring break and fed many, many families. The Livermore Wine Growers Association is working on our food program being a beneficiary, a named beneficiary, so that they can help support keeping it going, because we are losing money on that every day in order to feed everybody. But it's something that we're committed to doing. But that's a great place to donate if people want to. Like I said, we had 3,200 pounds of See's candy given out. The Livermore, what is it? Oh, I know, Wente Arts Program. They're going to be giving art supply kits. They'll have elementary ones and middle school ones. They're going to be handing out. And basically, anyone who contacts us and says we'd like to contribute, we're leaning them toward this program because we want to sustain it, and the need is increasing. And with the economy going the way it is, it could even increase more. Nobody should not have their basic food needs met. So we want to keep that in the forefront. But if they also want to brighten people's lives and do something fun or exciting, this is also, or health-wise, like the thermometers, this is the distribution point. We have that down to reach a lot of people. And then, so what we're doing is communicating. One of the things I do, I did morning Rotary yesterday. I met with realtors yesterday as well on a virtual meeting, trying to let people know about what we're doing. And we constantly have updates. We've gone to we were doing a daily update during the school dismissal initially, daily to staff at 3, daily to families at 5, and then they just felt a little inundated. So now we, as needed, if something shifts, like if the governor shifts something or if the public health department shifts something, then we update. And we monitor closely. Remember, we're under the federal guidelines, CDC. We also have what the state is saying, but then our county has very strict guidelines, even more stringent than the state sometimes. So we have to monitor all of that. I meet monthly virtually with the health department and the other superintendents so that we can be as up to date and keep everyone safe. And we're continuing to provide service and support, but we also want to have enrichment. So this summer will be distance learning for students who may have some learning gaps, but we'll also have some enrichment opportunities for anybody that they can access online. So we're planning for summer, and we're designing a roadmap to reopening. And this is the topic that everybody wants to know, what's it gonna be like? And to tell you the truth, and I don't like to often say this, I don't know. I know that we are prepared for many, many possibilities, up to including 100% of students at school, which we are scheduled August 24th to welcome them back, and we miss them and we want them back. But how we do that will be dictated very carefully by whatever guidelines are in place at that time. We are preparing already. We have sneeze guards that we've ordered, masks, gloves, deep cleaning materials. We've ordered hand washing standalone stations, extra sanitation things. So we're prepared for however they come back in order to keep all the personal hygiene and those things in place. But there may be gathering limitations. It may be that everything that we phased in will phase out. So we might start with limiting guests and not having assemblies and field trips and things and then we may be able to wean off of that. But we really don't know. We're also going to be prepared for distance learning and hybrid learning. Some families have already said that until there's a vaccine, they will not send their children to school. And they just won't. So if that happens, how do we make sure that they still learn? And in the distance learning, we're getting better at better. We also know that some staff members may not be able to come back because of their medical or their family's medical status. And so we need to keep them gainfully employed and still contributing. So lots of options, but nothing exactly worked out yet because we don't know what the landscape will be. We just have to be prepared and flexible. And I just always want to thank not my Rotary personally, but the Rotary in general, and then this Rotary Club in particular, because as always, if we have a need, you find it and you fill it, whether it's the Chromebooks, the Kinza thermometers, the chickens, anything that you can do. You've just done amazing things for our students. And, from the bottom of my heart, I thank my Rotary. I'm so proud of all that you do to help our students. They're going to make it through and they're going to be stronger and better before it, but only because of the support of all the community.
Thank you, Kelly. That's an amazing tour of what you have to do and what you have done. I am very, very impressed. I'm very confident for how you will manage your work. It should be fascinating to watch. We will expect updates. We have lots of time for questions. There must be questions for Kelly. Don't be shy.
A bit more on the internet for all and what technologies you're leveraging, and depends on the location where they're at. I know that some of the big companies are trying to do it for some of the African countries via satellite, but can you share a little bit more for how far you're getting with providing internet for all?
Sure. So our initial, the initial deals that we had were with Comcast. And so Comcast will provide either free or reduced rate. And they did it with hotspots, and they would also activate at people's homes. What we found though, one of the glitches was that if that particular household, and whether it's that family or even a prior family who had lived there, just that address, had ever had an issue with paying the bill or owing money to Comcast, then Comcast would not activate it. So that was unfortunate because sometimes they're in like a little apartment and the people before maybe had a difficulty financially. And so they struggled. And normally we have many kids that just go to the library to study because it's a quiet, nice place to study, but the libraries are closed as well. So that was one option. We've also handed out hotspots, and then but the larger initiative, there's one at the federal government, and then I've been working with, Eric Swalwell and his office on a movement toward internet for all, closing the digital divide. So that's the larger effort. And I could send, I can email some of the links so that there's a petition and there's some resolutions, and there's actually a stronger movement toward that because it's just an unfair situation.
What percent have internet? What's the void?
I would say that there when we first went into this, there were at least 15% of our students that did not have regular access. 15. I think we've reduced that, but there still could be some that have it maybe on a phone or intermittently, but not guaranteed.
Okay.
Kelly, I have a question. Are the kids going to be tested, medically tested for either virus or antibodies when they come back to school?
So we're not quite sure about the guidelines for that. Right now, it's more the honor system where even with work, we tell people do not come if you have symptoms and you have to wear a mask and you have to socially distance, or if you're compromised. But we are purchasing thermometers. Our nurses are prepared if they have to do extra screening just in case. Our pandemic plan that we already had in place, we've used it in a microcosm way for things like the influenza, the flu. We've used it for even, hand, foot, mouth on smaller, where we actually have protocols. Even for lice, our nurses have protocols where if there is a suspected case of something, and to contain the spread. This is a little larger, or a lot larger than that. But we do have a protocol where staff have to tell us, and we still protect them for HIPAA, but they have to tell us and self-identify if there's been an exposure or if they test positive. We have had one staff member test positive. It was a district office staff member where in this office building, luckily no children had come here, and so we did close it down and we did the deep cleaning and we closed it a few extra days to allow for that. And even that staff member had no symptoms, but so they're asymptomatic, but just as a precaution, we don't want to be the cause for anyone, having an exposure and then increasing the risk. We've had 2 students identified testing positive. They were the same family, but at 2 schools. And this was just a few weeks ago. They are both doing well. One was hospitalized, but it was through a community contact. It had nothing to do with schools because schools had been closed for months.
Kelly?
I'm going to jump in here just a second, play traffic cop. Kathy Coyle and I have been noting that a lot of people have been raising their hands very patiently and people have been jumping in front of them. So I'm going to play traffic cop here. Sorry.
Thanks, Glenn.
So Hank Shea had his hand up, not virtually, but his real hand. And then Beth had her hand up. And then I would ask you please to use the hand up function and we'll try to take people in turn. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Hank.
Kelly, 2 quick questions. For a missed 3rd trimester, what happens with courses that are prerequisites for courses in the following year? For example, if they miss the last trimester of trig, do they get to go on to calculus? So that's question 1. Question 2 is, are Livermore Public Schools sites for administering such standardized tests as SATs and so on and so forth? And if so, what happened to them?
Okay, so I'll do the second one first because it's a little easier. So the SATs, the people who administer the College Board, the PSAT and SATs, they had temporarily halted all of that. And but we are scheduled to begin again in October, and it will be, and the PSAT, normally we do that in our school day. So my assumption at this point is that they'll begin to have them again, but we would have, when we proctor anyway, we're pretty much far apart. So like AP tests have to be many, many feet apart. We give them in that environment, usually at Vineyard. So what happens is we will have to follow whatever guidelines are given. But if they go to virtual ones, AP went to virtual. What AP is doing is allowing students to take their advanced placement tests at home, and it's a condensed version. So the SAT College Board may make an adjustment, but right now we're just anticipating it would be in person, but with all of the other safety and health and safety protocols in place. Then for the other question, they didn't really miss the whole trimester. They're still getting active learning. Our teachers are working so hard, and actually some of our math teachers, I've had an opportunity to actually see and sit in on their classes. A calculus class, for instance, had 100% attendance the entire time checking in. So our students the majority of them are keeping up. And if they're not, we're reaching out. But what we're anticipating is something different in the first trimester. We might elongate that trimester. Normally it's 3 even parts, even numbers of days. We may elongate it to allow for more universal screening and testing and to identify any learning gaps. The other thing is now with distance learning, we're anticipating that our teachers who may not be able to come to school, they can now provide intervention at different times. So in the afternoon or evening, if there's catch up to do. But again, we're very careful with this the good thing about trimesters is you can catch up. And the final piece is the prerequisite. All of our classes, even if there's a prerequisite, it says or consent of instructor. So they can assess and see if they can still come in and do makeup.
Okay,
yeah, this is Beth. Of course, wondering about the music classes. Kind of hard to have band. I can't play in the Pleasanton Community Concert Band or the Livermore Amateur Symphony. What are they doing as far as the choirs, the orchestras, the bands, and maybe if there are dance classes, it would be the same sort of thing?
So actually our music teachers, I think maybe because they're so creative, they've been meeting. I've watched virtual choir performances for all the students. And we tried it today with Rotary. We all tried to sing that song, but I think, or we did the pledge together, but they're actually creating concerts. One of our teachers from Livermore High, he actually did a quartet with himself. So he taped himself doing 4 different pieces and then played it for the students. The kids were so excited about that. So it is different, but one of the nice things is they're pre-recording and they're getting feedback in a way that some students maybe didn't get when you had 30 all together. They're getting more one-on-one feedback. So it's different, but it's still happening. So it's kind of a new world for us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I could share some of those clips, Beth. I think you'd enjoy them.
Absolutely.
I don't see the hand function.
So I think the next person was Diana Geyer. And Christian, I just sent you a message.
Okay.
Diana? Diana, you're muted.
There. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
I just wondered if there's been any decision made yet for graduation. Is there still a possibility of anything?
Okay, so I can't spill the beans. I'm going to look at Philomena because no one's here to kick me virtually. So we have been proposing kind of a hybrid model of graduation, at least for our seniors. Many districts went to complete virtual, which we will have some features like that. But our students were polled, and we believe that we can mitigate the health risk factors to such an extent that we could allow them to have a ceremonial moment of closure and pomp and circumstance in a very structured way. But we are fine-tuning those details with our police department, with our administrators, working it out logistically. And so we're hoping, and our nurses and the public health department just gave us the guidelines yesterday, the renewed one. What also helps us is our graduations are after June. They're June 3rd, 4th, 5th. So we're anticipating maybe a 3-day graduation with people by appointment with this one ceremonial walk. And they'll have their moment with just their family bubble unit. So there's no crossing, and they'll have to have masks. They might be class of 2020 masks, but we want to give them at least one last walk on their school, because these students, when they left on March 13th, had no idea they could never come back. We didn't know that. We thought it would be temporary. And now we just think their emotional well-being and their closure, and then I think there'll be a part 2. I think of it like a wedding. Like sometimes you have the ceremony, but then sometimes you have a, the party or the reception. So their yearbooks were all held up because the companies couldn't do that. And so whenever their yearbooks come and whenever we can legally and safety-wise get together, we'll probably have, and maybe you'll be involved, or Rotary will have like a big barbecue and a yearbook signing at the rodeo grounds or something, But the details will come out tomorrow, and I don't want to spill the beans too much because the kids don't even know.
Okay, thank you.
Pat Coyle?
Yes, Kelly, just a wonderful presentation, and I'm so delighted we have Quest people on here as well. I know everybody's swamped. I just wondered if you've had a chance to take a look at the proposal that we see if we could roll out fold scopes as a community science project, incorporate it perhaps in the 5th grade.
Yes, I saw the fold scopes, and I've been kind of following the emails. My emails, as you can imagine, are never ending, but it sounds really exciting. And I think I know Mike Biondi and Kevin. We don't have Regina anymore. She retired, and normally she would be all over this already. So, but between Mike Biondi and Kevin Greer, they're going to be following up Dr. Greer.
Okay, that's super, Kelly. I'm not sure whether Mike and company have already allocated the donation from the Rotarian Foundation of Livermore for STEM scholarship, but my modest suggestion was to gather that up and apply it, and then we can, if we needed to, we could probably fundraise for the balance of it.
No, it's very, very exciting. I think.
Okay, good enough. Thanks much. Terrific.
Okay, I think we have Joel now.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for your presentation. How is your funding stream through ADA coming with attendance not being able to be taken?
So that's probably the downer. So I hope this isn't our last question, but so this year they held us harmless with ADA because there was no way to track that through school dismissal in a way that was fair. But we're hearing, because we are very heavily dependent upon state funding, and that's through taxes, both sales tax as well as personal tax, that we will be experiencing some, budget cuts like we've never experienced coming forward. So so before this hit, we were already going to $3.5 million in cuts that we had just because of just the way we're always underfunded in Livermore. And we had outlined those, and they were away from the classroom, but they were things that where if someone retired in a position, it's either a downgraded position or it's not being replaced, it's being temporarily put on hold. We made some of those adjustments. Now we're looking at larger ones. My hope is that that will be coming out May 15th, that we can survive it. We don't carry a large reserve because we haven't been able to sustain that and keep a quality program for our kids. And so we keep the mandatory reserve, but it's not as if we are lush and flush. But we are also not top heavy and we're lean, so there's not a lot of places to cut. So my goal is that we will follow what we've always done, which is when times are good, we have shared and given incremental raises to our folks. When times are bad, we've asked them to share that pain as well. So my concern is I don't want to lay off people and decimate the quality of our staff. And because what happens is you lose the new people coming in, and you lose them at higher rates because they're less costly, and it can take years for an organization such as ours to recover from that, and the quality will suffer for children. So my goal is to work with our unions, and we have wonderful relations with them, to say, can we all share the pain? And it might be that they don't get one of their teacher work days, or it might be that they don't, that they give a furlough day or so, or that all of us do, and then that would get us through. But we won't know till May 15th, and what we've heard for the first time is that that there might be a layoff window in August, but I think that would just be horrible because school starts in August. So we don't want to.
Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Christian gets the last question, and then we'll have to let it go. Christian?
Thank you so much. Kelly, I want to thank you for such a wonderful presentation, really very powerful, particularly your collaboration, with different agencies with the N95 masks, particularly, that's amazing. Now, as you know, a lot of parents, and I'm sure you've seen them at stores, are creating problems. They do not believe in wearing masks. Now, have you decided to make wearing masks a requirement? I understand that you haven't played out or haven't planned out the logistics, when the school reopens, but when it reopens, have you decided whether to enforce wearing masks? Have you worked with any of our agencies, the police or any healthcare agencies, on how to enforce for parents that tell their children that masks are irrelevant, it doesn't matter, that they shouldn't wear masks, that it's all made up, even the deaths at the hospital is being messed up, So have you had anything like, how do you plan to enforce that?
So right now, every facility we have has a sign posted that says you must wear a mask and you must keep 6 feet social distance. And that's for our construction sites, and for like right now, I'm at work here. And so I don't have my mask on now because I'm alone in my office, but we have to, I had a worker come in earlier and I have my mask, Christian, see? So parents can choose what happens when they have their children at home. But if that is the requirement from the public health or the advisory from the public health, then yes, they would have to wear a mask, and we would have to provide one. And I think that's the key. You can't expect everyone to have one, or a face covering of some sort. What we're actually going to try to do is make it a fun thing, so that and also a safety thing, because if everyone's walking around with masks, it might be a stranger on campus and you don't know who that person is, because you usually identify by face. So we're looking at some companies that will provide, imagine if you're a Junction student and you have a little bulldog mask, but it would have your name on it or a little label. We're trying to make it so that it's fun. So just as we require students to wear IDs, and we enforce that, their student ID, mine has my dog on it right now, but I actually have my ID, and we would require that. So parents have choice at home, but when you come into the school setting, you have to go with our policies and rules or the public health guidance.
How do you plan to enforce it?
Well,
if they say no, that their kids will not wear masks.
I haven't encountered that, but the same way we would do a dress code or any other thing, there's consequences and there's education. If the parent picks them up later, and but even our board members, They're wearing masks. Our student reps, when we have our board meetings still here, it's just, we don't let you in. You can't come. You have to
Thank you,
go.
Kelly. That's a good answer to a tough question.
Yeah.
Thank you all for today. This is what we hoped it would be, and it was wonderful. Next week is the Memorial Day program from Susan Campbell from the Valley Veterans Foundation, with Dennis O'Brien being her host for the day. Thank you very much. The meeting is over. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Kelly.
Bye, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Adios.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Kelly. Thanks, Jay.
Bye, bye-bye.
Good, glad she's there.